Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. We are hosting a webinar today that is covering the Master of International Affairs. We'll also touch on a sister program to that, which combines with the Master of Public Health. And we will take your questions through the chat box. And at the end, we may even have an opportunity for you to unmute and ask questions. But we're going to get started right now. We've got an hour to pack a lot of information in. And we hope you find this helpful, and thank you for joining us. So for today, we've got several presenters. So I'm Catherine Meyer, Director of Admissions Recruitment, and Ashley Treadway, who's our Assistant Director of Admissions, and will work with any student who applies. You'll hear from her a lot via email, and if you try to call the Bush School, she's often the one who picks up the phone before I do. Joining us at the end will be Katie Hickman, who is an admissions GA for us. And she's also a current international affairs student in her second year. And CJ Godkin, also another MIA student, but he's also completed the certificate program and brought some of those courses in. So if you do have questions about that aspect of maybe starting something earlier and then taking some of those classes, CJ is a good one to talk to him about. There's an agenda that we will cover today, mainly talking about the degree in the MIA and the MIA and PH. I'll also touch a little bit on the 5-year and briefly on the MIP, just so people understand what those are. We will cover the academic aspects of tracks, concentrations, the versatility of the Texas A&M courses that we have here, the curriculum and what that looks like in each of those two main programs, the capstone project that's required in your final semester. I'll also cover student resources like leadership, writing, travel, speakers. Then we'll segue into the employment focus and how we help our students find internships and jobs. And then Ashley will come back on and talk about application process and some of our recent stats for the incoming class. So you can kind of compare yourself and what you look like. And then I'll come back and talk about costs and aid and the student perspective. Will be those final few minutes with our students and then maybe generating and taking some questions at that time. So again, what's on your mind? Be sure to ask us. We will have that chat box open and Ashley will be answering those as I'm talking and vice versa. So we'll start with just that general one slide of what is the Bush School of Government and Public Service. So we are a graduate school only at Texas A&M University. We are also the smallest school here in a university that is nearly 80,000 students. We're about 400 full-time in PSA MIA first and second year. So just a niche part of that, very professional focused. We opened in 1997. We have roughly 2,200 alumni at this time. There are 4 College Station degrees, 2 of which I'm covering primarily on this webinar. That's an MIA, Master of Public Health combined degree, the MIP, which is an executive level type degree, and then the Master of Public Service, which I covered yesterday. 4 graduate certificates are also available to our students that they may want to put in combination with the degree courses. And for something different, there's an online executive Master of Public Service degree. In DC, we have opened a new location and they offer a Master of International Policy as well. And then they're opening a new program, which I'll talk about later, which is an MNSI. And they will include some additional opportunities as we expand, as we grow that location. I know, for instance, that there's already a capstone for the Master of Public Service who will do a project there in the spring of 2022. So that's opening up some opportunities for our students to go. So that's more to come. Essentially, students who are coming into any of these degree programs and certificates are focused primarily for careers in nonprofits, international NGOs, federal, state, local, contracting, private think tanks, you name it. If it has something to do with the public good in helping people move forward in their lives, they're a part of that. And that's what our programs are set to help people do. So we'll start with the Master of International Affairs. That's kind of our bread and butter degree. It's coupled with a Master of Public Service, which is the other main degree. The MIA is a 2-year, 48 credit hour degree, meaning that it's going to take students 4 full semesters, fall, spring, with an internship between the first and year. So you're typically doing 12 credit hours at a time. So that's 4 classes, fall, spring, summer internship, fall, spring, with 12 hours each. Some students can look into doing this program part-time, but you're talking 1 to 2 every few years who might do that. Majority of our students are full-time, coming here and getting in and out in 2 years with their degree to move forward. The great part of this type of degree is the flexibility that it presents itself. So you've got a degree plan that's relevant to your interests because you have 4 electives. Sorry, I said that wrong. 11 electives out of 16 classes. So building your tracks and concentrations, you're going to be able to pick and choose, and your degree plan is going to look a lot different than a classmate focused on something else. You're going to get faculty and career staff advising along the way, meeting with them one-on-one, dropping in after class, talking to them about something that you heard came up from a colleague about an internship opportunity and you want to know more about it. So they're accessible and easy to get a hold of during the day. You will also complete that relevant summer internship or a language immersion of your choosing. You get the choice based on your background and your interest. Sometimes students come in thinking that language is going to be easier to work on outside of class than it is, and they fall behind and worry if they can pass their language exam. And so they may choose to forego the internship and instead do a language immersion somewhere working on their Spanish, their Russian, Farsi. And that's your choice. So you work with the Career Services Office as well as your faculty advisor to line that up. You do have to pass a foreign language test for a graduation requirement. So part of what we're asking during the admissions cycle is where you stand with your current abilities in language. We want to make sure that not too many students come in at basic level because you cannot take language courses as part of your curriculum. It is all outside attainment, which we do provide some resources, and we'll talk about that later. You just have to make sure that you have a foundation in something that you can build upon. And we'll give you plenty of opportunities for choice of your language. Some people will build on what they did in high school. Others will maybe start something new. But you need to have progressed in it enough that you can pass it an oral communication, kind of a conversational level. You are also collaborating on a final semester capstone project with your classmates, and we'll cover what that entails later with a complete slide just dedicated to capstone. And then if you desire some flexibility, you can take some online elective courses. You have to keep in mind though, not a lot of courses are going to be available online. And if you choose to do it in that format, it does incur an additional cost. So that's a little over $1,500 per class if you choose to do that. But we can take up to 12 credit hours from a related Bushel certificate, which Ashley's going to talk about in just a few minutes. Now, for those that are from Texas A&M University, so bear with me if you're not from here. If you come into a joint degree program that we have combined with international studies and economics, you can get your bachelor and master's in 5 years. That is open to only a select few students. You have to be a major in one of those 2 departments. You have to apply and be admitted in your junior year so that by your senior year, you're enrolled with us and double counting some of our classes. So with the economics department, you have to maintain at least a 3.25 GPA. With international studies, it's at least a 3.5 GPA. You apply as juniors somewhere around that 70 to 80 hour mark because you are enrolling with us typically around 102, 104 hours. Sometimes people have a little bit more than that. We just work with you on a case-by-case basis. The intent of benefits for this type of degree is that 18 credit hours of your international studies courses, international affairs courses, our graduate level courses will also count towards your undergraduate. So you're paying undergraduate costs, but you're also saving on those courses, those 6 courses that you didn't have to pay for and take. You're applying with an internal application, so there's no app fee. And of course, the whole point of doing this is to earn both your bachelor's and your master's in 5 years. So you're shaving off a full year's worth of work. Now, there's a lot of interest in this program, but I will say it's highly competitive because all these joint program students, these 3+2 students, are also competing for the same slots of every applicant for the MIA. And so typically we're only going to enroll 3 to 6 students from the undergrad departments here as part of this 5-year program. And that's out of a class of about 90. So we welcome the interest, and I will have a webinar in October just for these type of students, but I did want to at least mention, because anyone who comes into this program will be working with a few students who are still undergrads. Now, we're also going to talk about the combined degree. This is a new program that was begun a couple of years ago where we are a joint effort with public health. So students who are interested in having a combined degree, it will take them 3 years to complete it. It's 78 total credit hours. You're doing the first half of that with the public health. So you have to apply through the SOFIS application, and you will do an internal application here with us. And Ashley will talk about a little bit of that later. But again, you're spending that first 1.5 years with Master of Public Health, taking their courses. You've got options in policy management or the health promotion and community health sciences. You're going to take their courses, keep moving on, and then by your 3rd semester, you are starting to take one of our classes, and then you'll segue into us full-time in 1.5 years. So students have to complete at least one capstone course with one of the two. Same thing with an internship or some kind of practicum course. And we will just work with each other through advising in that. So this is small. We're only looking at about 2 to 5 students right now a year, and they do come to us 1.5 years later, so it's a little off cycle. But remember that the Bushel funding only applies when carrying the MIA full load. So when we talk about Bushel scholarships later, it's only in the portion when you're enrolled with us. Public health should have their own opportunities and being able to go to their orientation and ask their questions and so forth. Now, I'm only going to touch on this briefly, but there is an executive level Master of International Policy degree. And I like to mention it because a lot of people are interested in it, but it does require years of experience even to be considered for it. And many times people don't have that. So if you're on this webinar and you're going, wait a minute, I have 4 years of professional international experience. I am interested in doing this in 1 year instead of 2. Then you can tune in next week. On Wednesday, we'll hold another webinar in the evening just for those that are looking for this MIP. So it is a 1-year, 30 credit hour degree. You must have 4 years of professional, international based kind of experience. So someone in the military could qualify. Someone who's worked in projects that have an international basis could qualify. But if you don't have that, you will not be accepted for it. They do take rolling applications for fall, spring, and summer entry, whereas the MIA only begins in the fall. It can take up to 6 hours of online courses, but again, it incurs that additional cost. But the executive level does not require an internship, does not require the capstone. There's no foreign language basis for it. But again, you don't get a Bushel scholarship for it. So you can use military benefits. You can still take out loans, find some outside funding. It's just we don't provide funding for it. So if interested in this, check us out next week on September 15th. Now, briefly, same thing, Washington, D.C. I'm hoping to cover this more on that webinar next week. But they also offer an international policy effort in the D.C. location. Same 30 credit hours, same 4-year professional international experience. But this one is made for working professionals. So primarily those courses are nighttime courses, and they also accept applications fall, spring, and summer, and still no internship, capstone, aid, or foreign language requirement. Now, brand new that I can't talk a lot about because I don't have the logistics of it was a newly approved degree that will start in fall of next year called a Master of National Security and Intelligence. It is built a lot like our Master of International Affairs, which has a concentration in intelligence. They just built the name of this degree. It's going to be a 2-year degree, a little bit shorter at 42 credit hours, also made for working professionals. It does require language. It does require an internship. Same with language. Immersion as an option in the summer. You do have to complete that capstone course working for a client. I just don't know much more past that. So I'm hoping I can get the DC office to come on with us or hold their own, and you guys can join one of their webinars. So Ashley, I'm going to pass this to you for a few minutes.
So one of the options that we have here at the Bush School specifically is a list of graduate certificates that you can pursue either before you apply and perhaps are admitted into a master's degree here, or let's say you're in the master's program and you're like, I really want to specialize in a different area other than my concentrations. You can then pursue a certificate and build that onto your transcript and resume. So the certificates that we offer here at the Bush School can be taken online, on campus, or a combination of both. The first one that we offer is a certificate in advanced international affairs. It is 4 courses or 12 credit hours. So for those of you that are looking to apply for the Master of International Affairs, if you're curious and are interested in this certificate, you do have to apply and be admitted prior to starting the Masters of International Affairs. Once you start the master's program, you can't come back and apply and pursue the certificate. Now, the other certificates listed below, that includes the Homeland Security, Nonprofit Management, or Public Management. Those certificates you can pursue before, during, or after the Masters of International Affairs. So what we've seen in the past is, the Masters of International Affairs students pursuing their certificate in Homeland Security to add that credential onto their resume, earn a little bit more expertise in that particular area on top of the 2 concentrations that they've already pursued in the Masters. There's 2 new certificates, a certificate in geospatial intelligence and a certificate in cybersecurity policy, where the Office of Extended Education teams up with those departments across campus to offer those courses for the certificate students. Catherine has listed out the hours next to each certificate. So 12 hours is 4 courses, 15 hours is 5 courses. And like I said before, certificates can complement the Master of International Affairs with a different specialty. The only other thing I wanted to add on to that is if you're an undergrad student here at A&M, you can pursue the certificate in your senior year. You just have to apply and be admitted your senior year here at A&M. And you can start that coursework your senior year and do it alongside your undergrad coursework. So this next slide here, it talks about tracks and concentrations. In the Master of International Affairs, we do offer, as well as the Master of International Affairs and Public Health combined degree, we offer 2 tracks. So for those of you that are interested in the combined degree, when you come into the MIA portion of the degree, you would choose between 2 tracks of international development and economic policy, or national security and diplomacy. Within that track, you take 1 required course, and then there's a list of other core courses of the curriculum, but then we have a whole slew of concentrations. So we have these listed, the blue concentrations listed in blue correspond with the international development and economic policy, and the national security and diplomacy concentrations are highlighted in red. And the reason for that is you do have to take 1 concentration within your track area. Then your second concentration can be in any of the areas. So you'll see that some are listed in gold. That means it can count for either concentration. So those range anywhere from cybersecurity policy to methods to women, peace, and security studies. You get to really pick and choose what you want to do in your degree. The next discussion that we wanted to have was just to let you know the curriculum does work into it the option for students to take courses through other departments here at Texas A&M. So let's say, for instance, you're really interested in nuclear engineering and how cyber kind of interacts with that. We do have some of our concentration areas that you'll see are actually nuclear engineering courses that you take through that department. Public health is another instance. We have just the ability for you to, kind of pick and choose which courses, mix them up a little bit to figure out what your area is, where you want to pursue a career. And then the curriculum. So I've already hit on this just a little bit. It does consist of 4 core courses. So that those are the courses listed in maroon. So we do have a quant methods course, which is a lot of math. We have international politics and theory and practice, and then fundamentals of global economy. We do have that 1 track course requirement. So if you're in the international development and economic policy, you're going to take that quantitative methods course. If you're in the national security and diplomacy track, you'll take the American foreign policy since World War II. Then, of course, you'll take 4 more electives in either your first or second semester. Then in the summer, we do require an internship or a language immersion. So for some of you that may not have a whole lot of experience in a foreign language, and you really need to build that skill in order to pass the foreign language exam by the time you graduate, you may want to look into a language immersion. So that way you can really just dive into learning a language, either working internationally or in a different study. Then the third semester, you'll take 4 electives. Then the final semester is your capstone. So it's a 1 semester capstone, along with 3 other electives to finish out the degree. Now, this is for the Master of International Affairs and Master of Public Health combined degree. So this is an example just for the health policy and management specific track within public health. So as you can see here, we have these listed, it's 3-year programs. So we have the first 1.5 years listed in orange to indicate that's the public health portion. And then the last 1.5 years highlighted in blue or colored in blue to indicate that is your Master of International Affairs portion. So you spend the first 1.5 years, you'll take some public health courses. You'll even take a capstone course, which can then count for your international affairs capstone if it is international related. You'll then join the Bush School in the spring of your 2nd year, and that's where you will continue on taking Bush School courses. Now you'll see in the fall of your 2nd year, you'll take 1 elective course in international affairs here at the Bush School, but you really dive into the Master of International Affairs your spring semester of your 2nd year. There is an internship or a language immersion that you still have to complete in the summer between your 2nd and 3rd year. And then your 3rd year is your final with a capstone, your final semester.
Okay, I'm going to jump back in and talk about that capstone required project. So this is a requirement in your final semester. There sometimes is one offered off cycle that might be there in the fall for those that have come in with some additional courses through a certificate and are graduating a semester early. And so there may be 1 or 2 choices at that time, but the majority of them are offered in the spring of that final semester. And you are choosing from a list of projects that our faculty have gone out and gather some interest from agencies of consulting work that we can help them with. So those will be presented to you. You're going to hear what those clients are, who's the instructor kind of coordinating it all, the work overview, the potential meeting time so it doesn't conflict with a course that you're taking. And then you're going to rank order your top 3. So those projects are then going to be assigned to you, hopefully in one of your top 2. Based on the faculty and student preferences, the enrollment distribution, because normally there's going to be 5 to 9 students per capstone. They're not going to be huge. They want to keep them very workable, where you guys can share duties and responsibilities and present those back out with a deliverable material that they can use. So those capstones are a wonderful last ditch effort to utilize all the materials that you have been learning through your first 3 semesters and putting it into play in your final. They're highly stressful, a lot of work put into them. So for those of you that are considering doing a certificate, sometimes it is helpful to have a 9-hour semester because you've already taken some certificate courses ahead of time. And having 9 hours while you're looking for your job and completing this highly stressful capstone project just puts a little less on your plate. So the leadership and writing staff often work with those capstone groups, and I'll talk about that in a moment. And then the clients are mirroring many of those same sectors as our employment list that I'll show you later. So state and local, nonprofits, federal, private. This next slide is an example of last spring's. It's a little too early right now to look to see what we have for coming up for spring of 2022. I didn't get much of the list for 21, so we're going to just go with what we had back when we were still robust with this. And you're going to see that the clients were Stratfor, UNICEF, Center for Global Security and Cooperation, National Security Agency, Department of State, the RAND Corps Intel Policy Center. It just runs the gamut of all kinds of really fascinating topics and consulting work that we can do. And you guys will, again, get a say in what you want to do. Sometimes it's tied to your interest, but sometimes people go on to something different. Man, I've heard great things about that professor. I really want to work with them. I didn't get to take one of their classes. So I'm going to do a capstone with them, even though it may not be related to your area of study. And that's okay. So you're still going to get project management and great resource in efforts here with your colleagues. And so you'll just have some say-so in that course. Now, as far as student resources go, there are a number of different programs that we offer. So we'll start with the leadership. This is an effort that Holly Kasperbauer runs here in meeting with you guys, often informally through workshops, through maybe scheduling some speakers. And she's trying to help you gain some self-knowledge. So they do a number of different assessments. Part of that is the Myers-Briggs type indicator, the strengths assessments, and you are learning more about yourself and how you learn and how others learn so that you guys can work effectively in groups. There's a lot of group projects that you will have to do here, including with that capstone. So it's a future preparation, even knowing your strengths going into a job. You're going to be working with other people and understanding them and you know what they bring to the table and how they learn and talk and work is all important. So Holly is valuable in that. Those are typically going to be elective type of workshops that you can sign up for. And then you will also be working her through either a leadership certificate that she offers, which involves not only attending a certain number of workshops, but also completing some leadership of maybe a student government or within the public service organization that we have. So you're taking a role in that. And then if you do an additional step of working with our writing program, then you can do the Dean's Medal of Excellence. And that looks like a big Olympic medal that goes around your neck that you get to wear at graduation. Probably not a lot of people will go through both programs, but those that are driven and really like that push for professional development, it works well for them. And you are learning a lot in completing both of them. Now that writing program is staffed by one staff member right now. They're working on the second one, getting that one rehired. But they're working with communicating with students through e-profiles and reflections. So coming back from your internship and talking about what you did and how you benefited from it provides you some context. So when you go into an interview, you have some answers that's pulling more from just classwork. They're in coordinating, helping you coordinate those debriefing reports and working on faculty coursework. Many times Cindy Razor, who's running that program, is called in to work with those capstones or with a certain faculty member on a project they're working on. So they're here. She's not here to read over your papers and edit them, but she is a wonderful resource and provides a number of workshops if you need to know more about the different audiences and MLA style writing and so forth. Now, on a different note, there is a language requirement for the MIA that I mentioned earlier, and students must pass a spoken exam. And we use the American Council on the Teaching of Foreign Languages, ACTFL. You have to pass at intermediate low, which is a conversational level. In order to make sure that you are at that level, we are providing Rosetta Stone free of charge. We also have practice groups. We also have tutors. And so you will have some resources to maintain or get back up to speed on your language by taking part in these groups. And remember, A&M is a huge university. So we usually, these practice groups are led by native language speakers that we were hiring to come in and work with our students. There's also a number of speakers and conferences. There's usually 2 big conferences in the fall. I'm not sure that they're running right now, maybe virtually for some of this. But speaker events, it runs the gamut of people coming in 2 to 3 times a week for something. It might be more career service based, just having employers coming in and do informational talks. It can be visiting faculty, alumni panels, speakers that are coming more of a national level, sharing their experiences and their research. And so you will have some say-so in going to those events, because we normally leave that 12:20 to 1:20 lunch hour open. So that's the time that student groups meet. That's the time that these speakers come in. And you'll find yourself attending those multiple times a week, just to learn more. That's what you're here in grad school for, to find out what is out there, what kind of networking can I do? And so we encourage students to get involved in those opportunities. There's also an international travel. It hasn't been running, of course, but we're hoping this will get back up at speed. Usually we'll have at least 1 trip taken each May. Those destinations have included Germany, Italy, India. China's usually every other every other year. And then there's a number of reciprocal exchanges we have in place with 5 different countries, and that includes China and Korea, Wales, Germany. I know there's one more, but you guys can decide what type of international travel you want to include in your time here, and then take part in that. Sometimes there may even be a December or January trip, but most of the time there's one set in May. Additionally, there's a number of institute centers and programs that we have here that are also hosting those speakers. And they're also providing research opportunities that sometimes students can be hired to work with professors. Those can run from Scowcroft Institute of International Affairs, which brings in a lot of speakers, the Mosbacher Institute for Trade, Economics, and Public Policy. Albritton Center for Grand Strategy is one of our newest, and it is also bringing in a number of great speakers. And then when you see the programs, those are more tied with the concentrations and the faculty who lead those groups. So for instance, the program on Women, Peace, and Security, Dr. Hudson runs that, and also has her Women's Stats project that a number of our students will work as student workers, helping her on different initiatives that they're doing. The Intelligence Studies program often will feature a number of our faculty who come together on panel talks about certain issues that are current right now. So the 9/11, Afghanistan, and how we're reacting to what's going on there. They'll hold different workshops or speaking events that you guys can be involved in for that. Same thing with Middle East program, and then the cyber policy and strategy is one of our newest as well. Now, normally I have Matt coming in here to talk about the career and student services aspect, but he's unavailable today, so I'm covering it for him. But just in a nutshell, the MIA employment is very solid. Within 6 months of graduation, 83 to 95% of our students are employed within a related field. And we use that 6 month because APSIA, Association of Professional Schools of International Affairs, all the programs that belong to that association want to report those numbers out consistently. And so it would be higher if we could count those who have job offers who haven't cleared security. But security clearance is important for a number of the jobs, particularly in the federal government contracting kind of leads to that. So we can't count those if they're not cleared at 6 months. And so just keep a little nugget with that as you're listening to these and listen to other schools. But our career staff is 3 different people. And so Mike Cochran is working with employer relations and bringing in a number of different agencies to come in and talk to our students, interview our students. This week alone, we had 3 CIA officers here interviewing in different rooms and just talking to our students about those interests and follow up. There's also other events going on at the same time that had to do with a complete other field event. Now, right now, it's heavy in the national security because you got to get all that information out early so people can start applying and get those security clearances in time for their internships. So our career services staff also provides a number of workshops. Marilyn Santiesteban runs those workshops. Now, these, a little bit different than the leadership ones, many of these are required if you want to receive some internship funding if you get an unpaid internship. So those professional development opportunities are cover letters and interview skills and getting your profile set up on LinkedIn, just some negotiating salary, a lot of very relevant workshops that you get say-so in which ones you want to attend. If you're, I think it's 6 or more that you attend, then you can apply for internship funding if you get one with no pay. You also have say-so in what you want to choose for your internships. And so you guys will work with the career services staff, work with the faculty in getting their advice and networking with them, in following up with the ones that are of interest to you. So they'll give you leads, but you're responsible for the follow-up. There's no just a handout of here's a list, pick what you want, you got it. You do have to do the legwork on it. So the stats that I have here cover the last 3 years. You'll see that federal is by and large where most of our students are headed. And that can fluctuate from year to year. It does combine that government contracting because a lot of those are actually federal level jobs, just handled in a different way. Private has stayed consistent around that mid-20s for students, particularly in the IDEP side. Sometimes they were looking at more the transfer pricing and financials, but not all of them are. Nonprofit, just touching on that, state and local, we'll show you some of those jobs in a second on the list. And then some do go on to continuing education for a law degree or a PhD, but we're not really the best place for that preparation because we are a terminal degree in a sense, where people are just coming in to get the degree and going out to work. And then other just covers maybe some jobs that people came in that aren't necessarily fitting these sectors. So as some samples of these, I'm not going to read them all out, but you can just look at them visually. Federal government, a number of these you're going to recognize. Some of our biggest do include the CIA, the FBI, Department of State, for those that want to continue on with a career as a diplomat or something similar. You've got the Government Accountability Office, you've got the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, USAID, again, is big for those sometimes coming from the international development side. Government contractors, also some of these are USAID contractors, but you've got Cyndia National Laboratories, Chemonics International, and many of these are consistent from year to year. Private, more Deloitte Consulting, Ernst & Young, KPMG, I see these every single year, Rand Corporation. State and local government, you have someone, Harris County is the Houston area Sheriff's Office, Texas Department of Emergency Management. Nonprofit, you've even got Institute for Defense Analysis, Greater Texas Foundation. It just depends on where a student wants to be and what they want to focus on. So we will help students get to those future careers. And now I'm going to pass it back to Ashley to talk about the application.
So for the Master of International Affairs, I'll talk about the MIA MPH combined degree here in just a few seconds. This is just for MIA. So for those that are applying to the International Affairs Masters, you will submit an application through a system called GradCast. It used to be Apply Texas for those of you that are familiar with that, but we changed over to a new system this year. Texas A&M continuing grad students and or 5-year students, you won't submit an application in GradCast. Instead, there's an internal application and you can visit our website for that internal application. The application fee for GradCast is $89 for domestic students and $114 for international applicants. We of course need unofficial transcripts. In the GradCast system. You will upload a copy of your transcripts. We don't need officials yet. We only need official transcripts if you hear back and you're admitted and you plan to enroll with us. Now, you won't be able to enroll or register for courses until official transcripts are on file, but don't send those until you know whether you're admitted. We need 3 recommendations, a resume, a personal statement, international experience essay, and we do get a lot of questions about what's the difference between a personal statement and an international experience essay. Personal statement is more about you, and we're wanting to know where you've come from, what you plan on doing, how do you plan on getting there. So it's more about you personally and what your goals are and how the MIA can help you. Whereas the international experience essay, we specifically want to know what sparked your interest in international affairs. Have you studied abroad? Have you lived abroad? Maybe you have family or friends, or maybe you've just studied. So maybe you've taken several classes in international affairs. Whatever that is, we want to hear about it in that essay. The GRE or GMAT score is only required if your GPA, cumulative GPA in your undergrad, maybe you have a master's and PhD. If your cumulative GPA is below a 3.2, we're going to ask for GRE scores. If your GPA is at that 3.2 or above level, and you're a great test taker and you think your GRE scores will help you maybe offset lack of experience or maybe poor past academic performance, you can go ahead and submit those GRE scores and they will be taken into consideration when you apply. Then for international students, we do require proof of English proficiency. There's a number of ways, including GRE verbal scores, the TOEFL, IELTS, and a list of other options that are on our website as well. Now for the Master of International Affairs and Public Health combined degree, your application is a little bit different. Actually, it's really different. So first of all, you will start by submitting a SOFAS application and paying their application fee. The School of Public Health has their own application system aside from GradCAS, and it's the SOFAS, which is School of Public Health Application System. Then as soon as you submit that application, you'll get notification to submit an internal application for the MIA portion. So we have just a few other additional requirements, including the international experience essay and the GRE scores for the international affairs section, and you'll upload that through the internal application. We of course need unofficial transcripts, so you will upload that through your SOFAS application. Officials aren't required until you know whether you're admitted and you're coming. Then 3 recommendations. That's all done through the SOFAS application. And then resume, personal statement, international experience essay, and then of course your GRE or GMAT, like I said before, if your GPA is below a 3.2, and then proof of English proficiency for international applicants. So there's a couple of, just an admissions timeline. So with our admissions process, there's a couple of steps that applicants will move through. So first, our application opened on August 3rd. So I've been collecting applications, getting those ready and prepared for the admissions committee, but our priority funding deadline is not until December 15th. And what that means is we recommend applicants try to get all of their materials and their applications submitted by this date to ensure that they are considered for all of our funding opportunities. There's just a few opportunities that have deadlines in mid-January, so we need applications before that so we know who we're nominating. So if you don't apply by the December 15th priority deadline, that's okay. You're still considered for funding and you will be considered and awarded a scholarship. But just make sure you get your application and all your materials in by the hard deadline of January 12th. So sometimes we will accept applications after the January 12th deadline, but it just depends on how many applicants we had. So for last year, we set a record number of applications. We did not extend our deadline. So we can't make any guarantees, so strive to have everything in by December 15th, and that includes your 3 recommendations. Then we get together as an admissions committee at the end of January, review applications and decide who we're going to go ahead and deny at that point, and who we're moving forward to the next step in the admissions process, which is interviews. Through the month of February, we will interview and invite those that are invited to interview via email. We'll send you a notification saying you're invited to the next round, and you register for an interview, either if you're international or you can't make it here to College Station for our interview conference weekend. We'll do interviews via Zoom. But we do encourage you to try to make our interview conference weekend, which is scheduled for February 18th through the 19th. It's here in College Station. You'll come, you'll visit with faculty. We have a number of sessions, and then you'll interview with a faculty member in the morning on Saturday and the afternoon on Saturday as well. get those interviews knocked out. But not only do you get a chance of seeing if you fit here at the Bush School, but you get to interact with, some of your fellow classmates potentially, and get to see if you fit in with them, if you're comfortable here, and then interact with faculty to see if these are the people you really want to learn from. So year after year, we hear feedback from applicants that interview conference weekend is unlike anything they've ever experienced, and it's what sold them on the program. So we encourage you, if you can, attend that interview conference weekend if you're invited. Then in the end of February, 1st of March, we're meeting again as a committee to decide who we're going to admit. So final decisions. At that same time, we do make funding decisions. So how much we're going to award a particular applicant. And our goal is to have decisions emailed out to all applicants by March 15th with you're accepted or you're denied or you're placed on a wait list. If you're accepted, we will include the scholarship amount in your letter, and then you have until April 15th to reply, yes, I'm coming, no, I'm not. Then mid-April to the end of May, we will set up a Facebook group for the incoming class, so that way you can kind of network, get to know your classmates, and we'll post important information for you to know there, like deadlines, and we'll of course keep you posted via email as well. And now I'm going to hand it back over to Catherine.
Sorry, I have to unmute myself. There you go. So international affairs by the numbers is just to give you an idea of what the class looked like for this year's entering fall group for both the MIA, which included 2 MPH students who will start with us in the spring. And then there's 5 MIP currently who came in the fall, but they are still taking applications for the spring and summer. So that may look a little different in a couple of months. But the enrollment for the MIA was right at that 85, because we do count the MPH students with that. Average GPA was a 3.56. Average GRE for those who submitted were a 308. Average age, it fluctuates between 24 to 25. This year, we're right at that 24 age. Women made up 54%. Underrepresented minorities made up 20%. International students was right around that 11%. And then non-residents was 59%, which included the international student as well. The average work experience, you can tell, we do bring in a lot of very young students. So 55%, which is actually a lot better than it's been in the past few years when it's floated around that 60 to maybe low 70s. So 0 to 2 years was 55% of the class. Then it went up with experience for about 21%, had a little bit more. And then 5+ years, 24% of the class. Across from that, the MIP, you'll see that their GPA was just a tad bit lower. Their GRE only had 3 out of the 5 who submitted them, and there were some really great scores. So very high on their average. Average age for the MIP is 35. So most of them are bringing in well over those 4 years of experience. Women made up 20%. There were no minority or international students in that. And then non-residents was 80% of that group. So all of them had the 4 or more years. In this case, all of them had more than 5. Average class size for these courses is about 16. We max out at 20 for most of them. They may push in a few more students for some popular classes, but you are not going to be lost in a big lecture classroom. It is very intimate around these boardroom style tables, and you guys just have to know your stuff and come prepared to class, know your readings. You're not going to be able to slink into the back and not be seen. And you're learning from these seasoned practitioners and researchers. So very respectful in what they bring to the table and listening. And that's why you're in grad school, is to learn from them. So I've got 2 slides before I'm going to open this up to the students. But for cost and aid, this is on the website. I'm going to skim over it fairly quickly. 100% of our incoming students, if they are full-time for the MIA, are receiving some level of scholarship. That usually is between $3,000 and more, but there's always a couple of people, 1 or 2 people, 3 people who get $1,000. And maybe it's because they're sponsored or they don't need more than that. But we're looking at the amount of money that we want to offer, and I broke it out by those categories. Now, public health students, just remember, you only get funding from us when you're in the MIA portion full-time. So for the breakout for this fall enrollment, 33% of our students were typically around that 3,000. I think there was 1 person who had 1,000. The rest were that 3,000 or more. Then you get up to 5,000 to 7,000, it's 45%. So that 5,000 level is what most students receive. Then we go up and we'll jump to the 10,000 level. And now you've got 12% of that incoming class receive that funding amount. And then there's 12.5 for a certain scholarship we have, there's 15, and then it jumps up to a couple of them like the Robertson Awards and Grad Merit Award. Those are worth more like $20,000, $29,000. Only 10% of that class got that level of scholarship. So you're only talking 8 or 9 students for that. Very competitive in that regard. So you can't apply for those full level funding. So for instance, I'll get emails asking people about how can I get one of those Robertson Awards? Well, you have to apply, and then the faculty have to pick you primarily through some of the interview conversations, and maybe just reviewing your file, and they look and see how strong you are. Then those students are nominated for that. The Coverdell Fellows is anyone who comes from Peace Corps that wants to fulfill a certain requirement for Coverdell. We can grant that to them, but they still get our traditional 5,000, 10,000, 15,000 and so forth. Graduate assistantships are available in year 2. So we do not cover GA, TA kind of positions, teaching assistants, grad assistants in year 1. You only can get that position in year 2, and you have to apply for them. If you receive a GA position, you have to give up your first year Bush School scholarship. So if you came in at 5,000, that 5,000 is not renewed because you're giving it up to take the GA position. If you're not, you're quite happy with where you are, you don't want to work the 20 hours a week, or you already have a side job that allows some flexibility, then you will just be renewed at your scholarship if you maintain a certain GPA. And then we talked about this earlier, internship scholarships are also available for those with unpaid interns, as long as you attend those career workshops. So we become a best value education because we provide out-of-state waivers for international and out-of-state students. And those waivers are worth about $12,000. So instead of paying that high $20,000 tuition and fees, your cost is just like a Texas resident once that waiver hits. You're looking at about $13,400 per year in tuition and fees, which is a huge savings from many of the private universities who are our competitors and colleagues. So just keep in mind, as a public institution, we are highly affordable. And then on top of that, the cost of living here is about $21,000 a year. Most students are on the hook for that kind of money. It's just part of the scholarship that we offer that will take off some of the costs of that $13,400. So if you get a $5,000 scholarship, you're looking a little over $8,000 is your portion to cover through loans, savings, work, however you can maintain that. And then same thing, MIA and PH students, you'll get our funding in the last year and a half, but you'll need to work with them to find out what their costs are. And then opportunities for involvement leading into the students to talk for a few minutes, and we may go over, my apologies, but we have a public service organization that does community events, student government association with a number of different committees that students can get involved in. One of them very active right now is diversity, equity, inclusion, the athletic, the tailgating, just getting ready for all the fall events and activities the students want to be involved in. There's a foreign language and cultural society that helps with those language sessions that we have, and then several that bring in speakers and events, and that's Alexander Hamilton Society, John Quincy Adams Society, Ambassador Council. You apply for that, you get to host different dignitaries and guest speakers that come in, and then of course there's some career clubs that exist in certain areas. One that comes to mind deals with fundraising in the nonprofits. All right, so I'm going to now give opportunity for our 2 MIA students. We have both Katie and CJ here. And Katie, if you'll start and kind of cover a little bit about your background and where you're from, and then maybe a notable first year experience or 2, and then we'll lead CJ to do the same thing. And guys, I know if you have to leave because we're running out of time, I understand that. You guys can reach back to us at any time, but I'm going to go ahead and let this keep recording for at least another 15 minutes, just to make sure that the webinar that will go up will include some MIA perspective. So Katie, I'm going to hand it off to you.
Okay, hi everyone. I'll try to go fast so CJ can hop in. But my name is Katie, and I am the graduate assistant for admissions and recruitment at the Bush School. and I am originally from Tennessee. I did my undergraduate studies at Middle Tennessee State University, and I've always wanted to go into public service. My mom always worked in local government, so that was really where my inspiration comes from. And at the Bush School, I'm on the National Security and Diplomacy track. I have a concentration in intelligence, and then as for my second concentration, I'm just kind of waiting to see what concentration I end up with, depending on what classes I think are interesting and which classes I want to take. So I'm not too focused on that. And then notable first year experiences. So me and CJ can say the same thing. COVID really tainted, I guess, our first year at the Bush School. It wasn't a normal experience just because half of our classes were on Zoom. So we didn't really get to meet our classmates as well. This year is already, I can say, way more fun just because people are finally back in the Bush School. But I would say my most notable experience was probably joining ambassadors, and I got to meet Neil Bush, President Bush's son. So that was really cool. But I guess I'm skipping over. Catherine, do you want me to go over each one of these bullet points or just glaze over?
Just pick on a couple of them. We don't have time for all of them.
Okay, so picking my capstone, I haven't done that yet. Internship, so I interned at International Student Services in the summer. So I was in College Station. And then the school environment, like I said, it's way better this year just because students are back in the Bush School. I've already met so many more people than last year just because we're in person. And then advice I would offer a prospect, I would say, don't be intimidated. I know I came from MTSU and it wasn't that hard of a university. So when I got here, I was really intimidated by the workload. But I would say if you're just willing to put in the work and work hard, do your readings, you're going to do well. So don't be intimidated to apply. And I can turn it over to CJ now.
Cool. Howdy, everyone. I'm CJ Godkin. I'm a first year MIA student here at the Bush School as well. I'm from San Antonio, Texas, lived in Texas my whole life. I did my undergrad here at A&M Political Science. So I've been here at A&M for a good number of years now. My inspiration for service, I'd say, very specific memory I have from my undergrad is I came in as an engineering student and did not particularly have a good time. And I ended up out at the Bush School one day just by complete happenstance and found the statue with the quote from President Bush about the need for public servants. And something about the quote just kind of struck a chord with me, and I've been following that ever since. Like I said, I'm an MIA student on National Security and Diplomacy track. My concentrations are diplomacy and intelligence. So I just finished up my first year, and I'll say, and Katie mentioned it as well, COVID really kind of gave us an interesting first year. But I will say I still had some really good experiences. I was able to attend a lot of virtual speaker events that I probably would not have been able to attend otherwise had they been in person, which I guess was sort of a silver lining of everything. We met with former ambassadors. We met with various former public servants or current public servants that really had a lot to say about what the life of public service entails. As far as classes go, I've had the opportunity to take classes with very esteemed academics, with incredible practitioners. I think my favorite so far has been I took a class on the interagency process with General Kim Fields. She has worked in various aspects of the government all her life, so it was an incredible class to take. I have not gotten to the capstone part of my degree yet. That'll be in the spring. Anxiously awaiting that, both good and bad. I think it'll be a good time. As far as my internship goes, I interned this summer with U.S. Embassy Belmopan in Belize. Because of COVID, the State Department did not permit travel to any of the embassies for their interns, so I worked remotely here in College Station for the summer. And yeah, all in all, I'd say for the prospective students, like Kate said, it's very doable. You can definitely do it. You just gotta put the work in, and you can do it. And I think importantly, the Bush School is a very diverse environment in terms of the students and the professors and the staff. So really just, when you get here, be you and share your story with the Bush School and contribute to that sense of community, that diverse community that we have here that's already been growing.
Are there any questions that any of you attendees would like to ask the students? You can unmute for a moment or put them in the chat questions, and we'll cover a couple before I wrap up for today. Ashley, did you have any questions? You had several the other day, asking them about classes.
Yeah, so if no one has a specific question, some of the questions that I like to hear from the current students are, what class or have you enjoyed the most here at the Bush School, and why? So CJ or Katie.
Okay. I kind of said this the other day in the video. I think it really depends on what you're interested in. I know I said I liked the American Foreign Policy class and the Grand Strategy class with Dr. Bartel, but I just really like history. So those classes really stood out to me and I learned a ton in those. Also, it was cool taking Ambassador Napper's class and Professor Olson's class just because it's awesome to learn from people who have had the careers that, you know, we want to have. So those classes were pretty notable for me as well.
Yeah, and I kind of touched on one earlier. I think so far my favorite probably has been the interagency process class with General Field. It was very much, you know, learning these sort of academic theoretical concepts behind this whole thing, but also getting some very practical lessons in American government and navigating bureaucracy from someone who's done it for her whole life. I think that I'd say that is the favorite I've taken so far. This semester, I'm in a foreign policy analysis class with Dr. Valerie Hudson. We're only a couple of weeks in now, but I'm already really excited for it. So I think, you know, whatever your interest may be, there's a very wide range of classes here at the Bush School, and you're definitely going to find at least one or two that you just really thoroughly enjoy.
Awesome.
I was going to see if, let me try to wrap up while there's a couple of questions. That way we can stay fairly consistent. And I'm going to go ahead and put the next slide up. If someone does want to chat with us, please put it in there. I also put a reminder that we'll have a student webinar where we'll have some both Master of Public Service. Katie will be back with the MIA as well. And we'll talk just to them specifically about a host of different activities they've been involved in, what their classes are like, how they've worked with our career services, favorite guest speakers, those kinds of things. So be sure to tune in with us on Monday, October the 4th. But we've got the emails here. You can reach me at bushschool.admissions@texasaM.edu. You've got a phone number there. You can call us. If anyone's interested in one of those certificates and finding more about how to maybe enroll in that before you come to the master's program, then there's Bush School Online at texasaM.edu. And then there's the DC location, which is bushschooldc@tamu.edu, and their phone number. And then as a reminder, we do have more upcoming events. So I've got the MIP next week, student life, admissions, career, co-curricular, which will cover more about speakers and a host of other things. So just the outside of the classroom, and then financial aid. And then we also have Zoom Q&A hours every 1 to 2 weeks. So I've got one coming up next Friday at 11 a.m. that you're welcome just to drop in on that Zoom link and just ask us questions or just sit and listen to others. Some people like to just do that. And then we have another online events that are upcoming. I've just included the 3+2 session for MIA, which will be October the 18th. And then I've got open houses that start in October. So we're already getting registrations for those. So if you find yourself in Bryan College Station, sign up for an open house. We'd love to meet you face to face. And we'll offer tours and just cover a lot of materials. Very similar to what we do here on the webinar, but you'll get some different perspectives. So just wanted to say that. I didn't see, oh, I do see one. There's one question we'll continue with. It says, how is student life and class environment different from other DC-based schools in terms of opportunities and placement? So Katie and CJ, I don't know if you guys had applied to the DC area schools and what you, maybe in comparing them, thought you saw from them versus us, that one of you could maybe answer?
This is actually, the Bush School is actually the only school I applied to just because the cost factor was super important to me. So I can't really tell you anything about DC schools because even if I had applied, I wouldn't know what the experience is like because I would have come here anyway. So CJ, I don't know if you can answer this question better.
Yeah, so I had applied to, I guess, a few of the DC schools. And that was to the question asked in the chat. That was sort of a concern I had, coming to the Bush School originally. And I went to interview weekend and I asked, current students, I asked faculty, I asked staff the same question. And sort of the conclusion I drew was, at some point, hopefully I will be up in DC anyways, where the cost of living is expensive and, it's not the most drivable city and all of that. So what was the rush to get there? All the faculty connections that we have here at the Bush School, I think, are certainly on par, if not exceeding those of the DC schools, just because, the faculty here, I love Bryan College Station, but there's not a whole lot going on in terms of foreign policy in this area. So that means the faculty that are here at the Bush School are really here for the Bush School. They're not here because, they go down the street to Brookings after class or something like that. And so I've not found any, I've not had any troubles in terms of opportunities or placements by coming to the Bush School as opposed to what I may have seen up in DC, particularly in the COVID era, I guess, when everything is remote anyways.
That's a great answer. I appreciate that. And I'll say from Matt's perspective too, from Career Services, is that our numbers are very competitive with the DC schools, which are also sitting in those, mid to high 80s to 90%. Part of that all depends on those security clearances and but you have connections. Everything now, especially after everybody was turned upside down with COVID last year, Zoom and connections, they're either coming here or we're setting up webinars. So there's still opportunities to attain a lot of that interaction. It just may not be face-to-face here in Bryan College Station. And then as CJ hinted, it's faculty are here. They're not running to and from another job that they're doing. They're here dedicated to you, using their connections, their networking. I see another question from Lauren here. What is the percentage of acceptance rate for the MIA? I'll have more of this narrowed down when we do our admissions webinar. I'll say right now that I'm thinking it was around a 60-ish percentage. I know I have that recorded somewhere. I just don't have it with me right now. Usually it's the last couple of years before we started increasing our apps, we were sitting at around the low 70s. I want to say we dropped back down to either the high 50s or the mid 60s. So a lot of students who are applying here are also applying to other universities. So as a statistic, I'll just say, if we're looking for a class of 90, we are typically admitting about 120 after interviewing about 180. So we want to interview about double what we want. And that ends up helping us pretty much hit that number of 90 each year. And you saw we were a little bit short of that. We'd lost some people at the last minute, either for economic or COVID reasons. So I don't see other questions. We're already have about 2:07 as our timeline. I don't want to run too much over. So I greatly appreciate all of you attending today. Please do check back out to some of these other webinars that we will have. That admissions one, we'll get into the nitty gritty with some stats and admissions and kind of some links and how to be competitive and some advice. So just catch back with us. And then again, drop in those Zoom Q&A hours. We'd love to just talk with you kind of one-on-one with other people in the room and answer your questions, especially if they pertain to other people. So thank you guys so much for attending today. We're going to sound off now and hope to see you and interact with you later this semester. Thank you guys so much. And yes, Mark, this video will be posted later. We just need to get it transcripted first. So give us another week and we'll send it out to you and post it. So thank you guys. Appreciate you coming by.